So I sat there, I was thinking to myself, that plugged in documentary, it was good and people engaged with it and I was happy with the level of engagement, but it didn't really reach the target audience I was looking for, which was young people. And then I thought to myself, you know what I need to do? I need to speak to some social media influencers who are in the right age range. And I thought, yeah, I'll do that. And it goes on the list of things that need to be done but don't get done in the back of my head. And then out of the blue, a charming gentleman by the name of Pierre, who runs a very popular YouTube channel called Pierre XO, contacted me and we began having a conversation. We started chatting to each other quite regularly. Really smart dude. And I had a conversation with him about social media usage, how people perceive social media influencers and the effects that social media influencers can have on others in terms of their mental health. Now, a bit of background. Before you watch this interview, it's worth having a skim of the two videos below. And bearing in mind, these videos went massively viral. There's a video of Pierre doing an interview with his then girlfriend when he's 24 years old, and it got 5 million views. What's interesting is people's response to that video and how they perceived him and how they reacted to him in the comments section. As budding psychologists, as we all are, seeking to understand human behavior, human psychology, particularly as it plays out in the arena of social media, it's really, really interesting to see how people perceived him and how they responded to him and how they lost sight of the fact that, like, he's a 24-year-old guy. And he said kid. He's a 24-year-old guy. He's not a kid. He's a man. And the clear triggering that occurred that caused the people viewing to go into an emotional flashback and to project quite nasty traits onto him with no justification whatsoever. And then he made a response video to that, also in the links below, which you also want to have a skim of. And if you look at the comments on that video, how much of a higher quality of consciousness is reflected in the comments. This is good. This gives me hope for social media usage and hope for the influence that social media influencers can have on their followers and their listeners in terms of their mental health, reducing the massive amounts of anxiety and depression that we're seeing in such huge numbers these days. Apart from that, it's a conversation with an intelligent lad who's got a lot to say. So that being said, I hope you enjoy this interview. Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today with Pierre. His YouTube channel is Pierre XO. His Instagram is Antidagger, Antidagger. And I met Pierre online recently, and we've been talking since then. If you've got my newsletter earlier, you'll have followed the links and you'll have seen the relevant videos. If not, it's probably worth watching the videos and links below in order to give this interview some context. Pierre, thank you very much for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me. I can't believe that we're talking face to face right now. It's crazy.
It's finally, after a lot of very sensible and deep WhatsApp and Instagram conversations about important things.
Very deep and sensible indeed.
Sensible, deep things. I'd like to start by asking you, this, could you, even for people who watched the video clips, could you just give us a brief rundown of what happened with these videos that feature you sort of prying into your relationship breakup and the response that you got online?
Sure. Okay, so to put it simply, it's a pretty like abstract concept to explain in terms of like what the actual video is supposed to be. But it was just a woman that I was dating, and we were basically put side by side, and we had to answer a bunch of questions about a relationship with headphones on, and the other person wouldn't hear the other person's answer, and sometimes we'd both take off the headphones and we would just tell each other things. And there's usually an interviewer there asking, so do you love her, or what do you guys do? Is that your wife? And we basically answered a bunch of questions for about an hour. It was cut down to about 7 minutes, and there was a narrative at the end video that everybody kind of found, and they concluded a certain opinion about me and her. And just about maybe a few months ago, a follow-up video was released, just a reaction to what happened before.
So in this video, well, let's talk about the real life relationship that you were in. What was the reality of the relationship that you were in? How old were you and how old was she and how did it form?
I was 24, she was 43, quite an age gap. And we met through Instagram, just, through how you would use Instagram. We liked each other's photos and she sent me a message to hang out in Los Angeles. So, being an open, youthful person, I was like, I'm open to new experience. Let's go. Like, I'm not going to judge her by how old I think she is or anything like that. Let's see how this goes. And we hung out and it was a really good time. She's a very expressive person, very passionate as well. And we just, grabbed coffees and laughed and talked quite a bit. And we were only really seeing each other for about once or twice a week for about 2 months, but it was a very, let's just say, emotionally intense situation, I guess.
The part of the video that people were reacting to, speaking of emotional intensity, that reacted to with such emotional intensity, what was it that set people off?
In the video, they used a lot of footage that portrayed her as a very, let's just say, overly sensitive, caring, and nurturing type. And in my situation, I didn't exactly open myself up to receive it on camera,
right?
Because it was quite strong. So I kind of just held my ground and tried to stay level-headed and stated what I felt about the relationship, which ultimately led to me saying, you know what, I don't really agree with being boyfriend or girlfriend. We're just seeing what happens, and this is what happens. And everybody in the comments kind of took that as if I was leading her on and not because I didn't give her exactly what she wanted, sort of a thing. And they really sided with her in that end.
So when you both had the headphones on, when it was her turn and they asked if she loved you, what did she say?
Yeah, I believe it's in the video. I did have the headphones on. She said, yes, I do love him. Yeah, and it was just simple as that, basically. Yes, I do love him. And they told her to look at me and tell me, but I still had the headphones on. And she told me.
And when it was your turn, how did you answer?
So I think at this point, we actually both had our headphones off. And the interviewer asked me if I loved her. And I said, it's quite comical how I did it, actually. I was just like, damn. I actually paused for a good 10 seconds. And I really thought about my answer because I didn't. It was only about 2 months. And it was too quick to just jump into anything.
Yeah.
And I really had to think about it. How do I do this gracefully with a film crew here, with all these cameras on me? So I just said, I do in a particular way. There's multiple kinds of love, some for your friends, some for your family, and in this particular case, I don't think I love you in this way, but I do think you're an amazing person, and I really like the time that we spent together.
All I'm hearing is rejection.
Yeah.
Sorry, definitely. It's not about me. I just got triggered into a flashback.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is. I mean, it is total rejection. And I'm sure it was painful for everybody to hear, which ultimately, I think that was the point where really everyone in the comments was like, this asshole, like, just rejected her and she just wants to give him the world,
Yeah. It's a funny thing that the people in the comments, from what I saw, it looked like they'd really internalized it and made it about themselves.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing a 24-year-old with a 43-year-old inside of a 2-month relationship being pressured into saying something he didn't feel or want to say. The greater crime for me would definitely have been folding and saying, yes, I love you.
Exactly. I imagined if I were to just lie and say, yes, I do, I would not only be doing something worse, which is lying, I would continuously lead her on, and it would end up even worse than it could have been. But I definitely think everybody in the comments they either had a situation that was really, really similar with a guy that somewhat looked like me that could have probably broke their heart at one point, and they just kind of maybe projected that entire perspective onto the relationship.
Oh no, he didn't need to look like you. He just needed to be a vaguely confident male. It's more than,
There. There it is.
it's more than enough of a crime.
Yeah, there it is.
Now, did she say in this video, or did she imply that you would be her boyfriend, that she decided for you that you were to be her boyfriend?
It was quite overt. The interviewer asked her, so is he your boyfriend? And she said, yes, he's my boyfriend, but he doesn't know it yet. But yeah, he's my boyfriend.
So she knew she was pushing you?
Yes, because we've had this discussion off camera multiple times in the relationship in the past. And this was one of the things that would really set me off, the fact that she would continuously push me to have this discussion, and eventually got to the point where she would be like, okay, fine. We don't have to be boyfriend, girlfriend, it's okay. So then we would stop talking about it for maybe the next week that we saw each other, but then it would come back the week after.
So she'd give you a week's break, and then she was like, no, I won't mention it again, circle around, and then come back to it.
Yeah, exactly. And she had already agreed to not talk about it, but it would eventually come back.
I walked into a restaurant today here in Ibiza, and the waiter said, I know you. And I went, I don't fucking know you. And he went, no, I know you. And I was like, oh, you know me from YouTube. And we got into a conversation, and he was telling me about his girlfriend. And I've been at this since 2012. And I can tell when a client or a person or an audience member is trying to show me one part of a story so that they can get the reaction from me that they want without telling me everything. And I was talking to him, and I was like, are you pushing this girl into a relationship that she doesn't want? And he went, so if you're looking at me, he went like this. No, I don't think so. I was like, so are we sure that this is what she wants? And he was like, well, no, not really. Is it about what you want? And he was like, well, it's slightly about what I want. And I'm like, well, before you start trying to get me to analyze whether she's a narcissist or a borderline, whatever else, maybe the relationship dynamic is fucked up. The reason I bring that up is because she was pushing you, there's kind of an inevitability of disaster just in her doing that, don't you think?
Sure. By the way, that guy probably unsubscribed to you right after that. It's probably like, that's not the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like with her, I don't think that she was completely self-aware of how her actions can influence the next upcoming events.
Right.
You know, it's like, because like even how the video came to be was extremely impulsive on both of our ends. My friend that worked for the company just, last minute, hey, a couple just canceled. Do you want to come join us for the thing? Mm-hmm. So me and her were just like, yes. And definitely I played a part in that. I didn't think through about this might have 1 million views. But with her, when she would talk about these particular things, or we would talk about particular subjects, I don't think she thought that far ahead. If we were to take a particular action, how it would end up.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of the YouTube comments that you were getting from people, was there anybody did anybody point out that like she was 20 years older than you and pushing you into a scenario that you just didn't want to be in?
Sorry, in terms of the comments. Sorry,
in the comments, did anybody point out that 20 years older than you and pushing you?
Yeah, it was a very small minority. Okay. I'm talking about when I would scroll through the comments, it was maybe one after 57. Like it was a very small minority that I don't want to say necessarily sided with me, but at least looked at the situation differently. I mean, a lot of the comments were based on superficial things, but a good majority of the comments that would look a lot deeper into the situation was definitely supporting her end.
And so Do you think if the gender, sorry, I nearly said the genders, mistakey.
Ooh.
If the
Dangerous.
sexes, people do this all the time. I've even heard psychologists fuck that up. Gender
Yeah.
and sex. If the sexes were reversed,
Mm-hmm.
do you think people's response would have been different?
I don't want to give an overly committed 100%, but I do definitely know for a fact that the responses would be very different, but in the way that it would be different, I'm not exactly 100% sure. I do think that if there was an older man, twice the age of a younger girl, and he claimed, hey, you're my girlfriend, and you don't know it yet, but you're my girlfriend, I think it would be a vastly different reaction.
It's pretty creepy. I'm around that woman's age, so if you put me in front of a 21-year-old on camera and I was like, this chick, she's my girlfriend. She doesn't know it yet, but she will be.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
That's pretty.
Yeah, I think it would be a very different reaction. And I mean, I made a reaction video to the reaction video of the original video, and people, a small minority was like saying, you know what, I don't think I would look at it that differently. Maybe the younger girl would be shamed for being young and naive and a gold digger for being with an older man, or something along the lines of that. So I don't know what it would be, but I definitely think the reaction would be different.
I think when it comes to the sexes, generally speaking, there's an assumption of innocence for women and an assumption of criminality for men, generally. So because you're a man, you must be in the predatory role. So either, well, in this case, you were just some heartless, young, good-looking dickhead that broke her sincere heart.
Mm-hmm.
That was the narrative they were working from.
Yeah, I think that especially being 24, overly confident for the sake of just being 24, wearing like a leather jacket and portraying myself more confidently in that video, it definitely fit the profile of like the archetypal heartbreaker type of predatorish, maybe type of person.
Predatorish.
Predatorish.
Predatorici. It's like Italian. You want the predatorici? I do.
Predatorici, yes.
Have you ever seen? I have a video called "How to Overcome a Female Narcissist." Have you ever seen that one?
I think so. I've seen a lot of your videos, Richard, so I don't know by title. But
It's not on my channel. It's over on 21 Studios. But in that, I go.
That's the one. Yeah, I definitely have. Them. Okay.
But you've seen this element of projection of archetypes, projection of tropes. The idea of the narcissist as being like this Patrick Bateman, American Psycho, handsome, athletic dude in a red sports car who shags everyone. And you're talking to people and going, that's really not what the literature says. That's kind of like, that's in your head. You're putting that onto people. You're like, some guys are like that. But there's not tons of them. There's not, it can just be a case of projective identification where because you're in pain, your emotional flashback is causing you to see something that really isn't there.
Sure. You know what? That video, I remember actually very clearly. I jumped into another terrible relationship months after that one ended.
Good lad. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. I know my patterns. So the moment that one ended, that's when your videos really came into my life. That one with the whiteboard, right?
Right.
And when you were kind of breaking that down with the, okay. So
I love whiteboard.
That one thing that you said that really stuck with me still to this day was that if the, I guess, so-called abuser doesn't get the Patrick Bateman from that relationship, they will push that person to the point where they can get that projection from them.
Yeah. There's a dark sort of like an unconscious desire to see it in the other person, even if it's not there. So either there'll be a delusional invention of things that just didn't happen or weren't said, or a provocation like reactive abuse, to make you respond angrily or to be dismissive and cold. And then once you've been dismissive and cold because they've acted like such a dick, they'll go, look, see, I knew, cold-hearted psychopath.
Yep. And that was exactly what happened in my last relationship. And every time I was pushed to that stage, I almost felt like the sense of relief on their end.
Yeah.
And this ties in with like kind of the social media persona thing. Like I do come off a particular way with the things that I post on social media with my particular image and kind of my behavior with the persona. And it is a big element of me. But I think that a lot of viewers might take that 5 steps further and project that kind of, Patrick Bateman type of person onto me. And this particular girl, I think, was trying to push that side of me into the point where I would be crazy.
Yes, I mean, I'm by the way, like, I never got that from you. I think that's a really, really strong misperception. I think most people who are emotionally regulated wouldn't see that in you. Well, I'm connected with you on Instagram, and as I said to you, I found out recently what an Aquarius is like. You're a true Aquarius. You built your own little world, and now you're living inside of it. And you're like, you guys are welcome to join, but I'm not changing.
Yeah, sure.
This is Pierre's world now.
Yeah, unless I recognize some unhealthy behaviors of mine, and then that was the thing to change. But it's like this idea of gaslighting has really affected how I even view myself nowadays.
Right.
And like seeing, like, when you get 5 whatever million people projecting this image on you, you start really questioning your own behaviors and who you are as a person, thinking like, what if I actually am like that? And this particular action of me being a little more confident here is actually me being a narcissist, or like me being, something. So nowadays it still lingers occasionally. Like, am I that person because everybody thinks that I could be?
And I think it's worth saying at this point, I should do a video on this. The way social media works, the way YouTube works is when you see a ton of comments, your brain will go, oh, there's 57 people have said this, and one person said, no, actually, he's just a young guy who's only into a 2-month relationship and he's not into it. You'll think, oh, one person in 57 sees it. Most people don't even comment. And the people who don't comment probably can see perfectly well what's going on. The comment sections of everything, blogs, Instagram, YouTube, can become idiot magnets, and the algorithms are deliberately set to encourage and reward people in the dopamine system for spurting out their opinions. So people with low impulse control will fall prey to that and spurt it out. But unless the comment is really well structured and you can see clearly by the content and the intent it's coming from a good place, it's probably somebody just squirting off. And they probably squirted off on like 5 other YouTube videos that day and didn't really think it through.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I watched that in your documentary too, and I've also put a lot of thought into it, especially after watching it. But in terms of like the so-called negative comments in the original video, what really struck me was not the ones that would just call me slurs or just immediately talk shit on me. It was the ones that were like a paragraph or 2 long, that were psychoanalytical and just totally having the wrong story of what was going on, sort of a thing. And those were the comments that were like, okay, so these are fairly intelligent people. They're not just complete idiots, but this is how they're personally thinking, and everybody agrees with them.
That makes them an idiot. They're still an idiot. Like, they're an idiot with maybe a psychology degree, or an idiot with an average level of intelligence. But if you take your intelligence and act like an idiot, you're an idiot. You're worse than somebody who simply, through no fault of their own, has low IQ. You're misusing your intelligence. And that fake analysis thing is a beloved strategy of borderlines, beloved, of malignant predatory borderlines. Really? Fake analysis is like probably number one or number 2 of the list of things that they'll do. because most are being
Okay.
therapy. So if you're getting a lot of fake, unasked for analysis, it's actually just an attempt at a boundary break and to reassert dominance in the dynamic. Because the borderline is obsessed by feelings of shame and feeling like they're beneath you. So they're like, oh, if I analyze you, because psychiatrists and psychologists made me feel in a lesser position, I'll be in a dominant position over you.
Wow. Okay. That makes a lot more sense with my last relationship then. I'm putting the two and two together. Okay.
Did you have a lot of that going on?
Yes, a lot of, and it was quite confusing because here I am completely attracted to somebody that totally, what I thought had to come like head on shoulders, total brain, really deep, insightful, intellectual conversations. And then using those elements to continuously overanalyze my entire being in a negative manner, and also my friends and the people that I'm associated with, made me really confused, because here I'm thinking all smart people or all intelligent people generally have good intentions, because when you're smart, you know what you're doing, you know?
It's a very, like what you're describing is a classic BPD strategy. And the point of the exercise was not to offer you insight. The point of the exercise was how it made you feel, which was confused. She saw your confidence and she decided to chip away at it because it probably triggered her into a shame flashback. She wanted to be close to you, but at the same time, she wanted to drown you in her own unresolved, unconscious, emotional tar.
No, that explains why I didn't make any music or anything at the end of the relationship. I just felt like a flat tire.
Yeah, because
why?
you'd have been chipped away at. See, you're aware of some of the ways you were chipped away at, but you were also chipped away at in 1,001 other ways that you weren't aware of. Female and male borderlines do exactly the same shit.
I've had a deep friendship with the male borderline, and now a deeper relationship with the female borderline. And it was kind of similar, but it was different because my male friend was a best friend and she was my girlfriend at the time. So it was approached differently, but same kind of tactics and techniques, I guess.
Yeah. It's usually like, I mean, the description of the personality disorders as is kind of like, oh, this person has a virus or a genetic defect and that's it. I think it's probably best regarded as like a series of strategies that were developed in response to a particular pattern of trauma. That's why they're doing it in that way, rather than like a grandiose, classic narcissist, confident way. It's coming through around the houses, and you know they're sort of in a battle with themselves a little bit.
Sure. And I would see comments. Sorry, go ahead. You can ask something.
It was your turn.
Yeah, I saw some comments about like particular stigma associated with borderline and stuff like that. But I think people really do not take into account the receiving end of it, because I think that it's just as dangerous as almost having borderline, like being both parties in it is.
There's a stigma to borderline because they're fucking abusive assholes. When they stop being abusive, assholes won't be a stigma. And the fact that they're saying, oh, there's a stigma against my condition, is more of their shit. What they do is victimize themselves. They're obsessed with narcissistic supply the same way narcissists are, but they like it tinged with sympathy. So they are the ultimate vulnerable predator. They're the biggest victim in the room. So they'll stab you and then scream at you for getting their knife bloody. They're like, look what you did. This is my favorite fucking knife.
Well, I'll warn you, Richard. We might have some comments flooding your way being like, hey, there's a stigma against this, and you should be a little more careful with your Richard.
I've been at this for years. I've been attacked many times for not being more compassionate to narcissists and not being more compassionate to borderlines. But at the end of the day, they still have volition. The idea that they're out of control is totally false. I mean, and all of the research, the serious research backs this. They're not out of control. So they know when they're harming people, and they harm, like a borderline will harm somebody because they need to recruit people to do things that their fractured ego can't do. The narcissist doesn't really, is not that, he'll harm you if you get in his way, but he really just, or she really just wants supply. They're vain. The borderline is it's a different thing, and their strategies are nasty. One of the things I would say is a lot of people who've been diagnosed as borderline, who are in the comments now going, fuck you for saying this about borderlines. It's possible you're not actually borderline. It's possible you just have CPTSD. But the way that the diagnosis works now is a lot of people with CPTSD are diagnosed as borderline. But if you're not predatory, entitled, and exploitative, you're not borderline. It's an incorrect diagnosis.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but if you're predatory, entitled, and exploitative, then you're an asshole and you deserve stigma.
So do you think that all of this stuff is done intentionally and consciously when it comes to the borderline and the narcissist?
Yes, not only do I think, but that's not Richie's fringe opinion, and I have lots of fringe opinions. That's mainstream now. That's mainstream.
Really?
Yeah. It's why there was a myth, but it was mainly being pushed around online. It wasn't actually in the research. It's just that most of the people on YouTube who pontificate don't bother reading or don't give a shit about the research. All they care about is views and followers and selling their coaching packages. It was never really thought that a human being would engage in a long-term Machiavellian strategy with 6 steps and not know that they're doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I guess in the clinical research, of course they know they're doing it.
I guess from my personal experience, it just seemed very reactionary. Like it almost looked as if they were just kind of like this series of patterns just triggers immediately once something is being said to them and whatever else, and they're just completely unconscious of doing that. But apparently, I guess not.
Well, I mean, without drifting in, like, because you can get into a conversation that becomes philosophical, which is useful, as into what is conscious and what's unconscious. So yes, they are the victims of trauma, 100%. All of them, psychopaths, borderlines, histrionics, narcissists, victims of trauma. Yes, this is complex post-traumatic stress that's being manifested. And yes, when they do this, it can be instantaneous because they can be triggered into a flashback from very little, or it could be their own superego makes a judgment. You know, their own superego is whispering in their head, you see how loving he's being to you today? You see how much he cares about you? He's fucking cheating on you. Only if he, so you cannot win. Like whatever you do, you can't win. That triggers a flashback and then you'll be attacked. But that's, so they can't stop the flashback. They are out of control of that, but they can control what they do with it. It's whether they want to or not. And what we found, like I speak for psychology everywhere, what the psychologists have found is in the case of narcissists, it's really hard to get them to change their patterns of behavior because it's working for them. If we're talking borderline, there's been more success. And I would claim the reason why there's been more success with borderline is probably because about 80 to 90% of borderlines that have been diagnosed actually just have just straightforward CPTSD. And they're probably really cranky and bitchy and nasty when they're in a flashback. But that's not a personality disorder by the DSM definitions of a personality disorder.
Okay, so I mean, we don't have to get into detail exactly, but I mean, to put it simply, how do you know if it's?
We're here now.
I mean, how do you know if it's CTD, PTTDD, or do you know? How do you know if it's borderline?
CPD. Excuse me, I'm sweating like a Baptist preacher here. Yeah, I will tell you that the Spartan laugh, coach. For borderlines, I'm going to claim magical powers and say, because I've been doing this for so long, I know through the patterns of speech, communication via email, via text. I can even see when it's written, like highly borderline types of communication.
Really?
Yeah. But wow. Look, with CPTSD, people who just have CPTSD are humble and want to heal. If you're going, this person tells me they want to heal, but they don't act like they do, and you're confused, that's not a good fucking sign. Mm-hmm. There's never been a phase in my life where I was really struggling with CPTSD, where I was, say if I did something, because I did as a result of my CPTSD, there's an inner critic, but there's something called the outer critic. I said shit to people either because I was in a flashback that was way too harsh, or more typically I'd say stuff to people that I thought was funny because my sense of humor was just dark as fuck, and it hurt them. It hurt their feelings, and then I would feel ashamed, and then I'd have to go and apologize. That's not happening with people who are in the cluster B spectrum. That's not going to work out like that. The apology will only ever be used as a new hook, as a new way of making you think like, oh, this person just has CPTSD. If you're confused about it, it's not great. But like I said before, you're looking for predatory, entitled, and exploitative behavior. You see enough of that with somebody, and you see a total absence of humility and a total absence of conscientiousness about clearing a path to themselves, it ain't good.
I see. You know, to add on the email thing, I was very cautious of sending you an email because I was like, oh, how do I word this so he doesn't think I'm some sort of narcissist or some borderline trying to get his attention? And I was just like,
well, no, I mean,
overthinking it.
And you know, like, I don't think people realize how much of themselves that they're giving away. We all give away way more information than we think. The ego protects you and says, don't worry, nobody can tell, nobody can tell. It's like, most people can tell. If you get good at it and you're fairly emotionally regulated to the point where your perceptions have cleared, you can see sincerity. You can feel sincere communication in the same way that you can feel chaotic, reaction-seeking communication very early on. It's a rare day for somebody to get past me now. It has happened. I'm sure it's happened. My brain's going, it happened once in the last 2 years. But I was going to release a video called No New Narcissists, because for the past 4 years, I haven't had any new personality disorder people in my life. I've had fucking dickheads, but nobody who I would say that's actually a serious personality disorder going on there.
I see. Yeah,
it's not that hard. It's not like I can teach you how to do it. It's really not that hard.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in my personal experience, I've had a new narcissist in my life every year almost. And I'm a lot better at it now, but I think for me, I would like to think that I grew wiser and more vigilant when it comes to these people entering my life. And I think becoming overly trusting to all of these people, you know, I would think initially that this person seems to be sincere and whatever else, and 3 months down the line, the mask comes off, and then I have to repeat the whole cycle all over again.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, I have to be honest with you and tell you that the people who've taught me the most about spotting people like this are psychopaths and narcissists.
Really?
Yeah. Well, obviously, people know I've worked with Sam Batman.
Yeah, right.
Spent a lot of time in conversation with him, so he's helped me a lot. But there was another person in my life, and she used to say, just look at the evidence in front of your eyes. Just look at how that person lives. And I'd be like, I am looking at the evidence in front of my, what are you talking? And then I'd look again and I go, oh, shit. Oh, yeah. So there's this tendency to sort of block any negative signs and just go, oh no, this person's lovely. Or it's a neurotic tendency in codependence to start from the assumption that that person, the other person, is of good intent. It's wrong. You should start with no assumption. They are neutral. They're a blank slate until their actions over time show you one way or the other. The codependent fawn responder, we're just as bad for projective identification. So what you'll get in some cases of people with borderline or narcissism is they'll projectively identify onto you bad things. The badness in themselves, they'll project onto you. Meanwhile, we're fucking projecting Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and the Care Bears onto every fucker who walks into our lives. Oh, they're so lovely. They're such a good person. Yes, they kill people for money. Yes.
Sure.
But
sure.
Have you heard him play the piano? Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
So, I mean, do you think that the world we live in now with social media, do you think that influences the acceptance of this kind of behavior, or just at least the promotion of being naive enough to be in it? Or
well, that was that actually before I answer that, let me ask you a question, because we've said some, like, there were some negative responses online to this,
Yeah. Sure, sure.
right? But you released another video,
Yeah.
and then the responses I saw to that video were way healthier, and it looked like you trained your audience, and that's what I do with Spark Life Coach. Over the years, I've just been like, any fucking village idiots, I don't argue with them. I don't edit this block, and most have just gone away. I positively reward people who speak or write intelligently, reflectively, with good philosophy and rationally. I'll chat to them. Now, what I saw on your video is you can train people through the video. You can be like, listen, this is what actually happened. Think, use your intelligence, and then they won't be as reactive. Could you first tell people what video you made and then what kind of response you got?
Sure. So after the very first video blew up. 2 years later, a reaction video with me and my ex were watching it and reacting to it. And so because of this, the entire commotion and controversy came back up. And I was getting the hate comments again.
How many views did the first video get?
The first video is now about like 5.7 million.
And then the second video where you guys went back 2 years later and reflected on it?
Yeah, it's currently almost at 3 million, 2.7 right now, something like that.
It's just to give people, if they haven't watched it, and please everybody go and watch that first, it'll make so much more sense, to give them an idea of the scale of this thing. I mean, when you say it went viral, it really went viral.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So what happened was after the second video came out, there were a lot of comments again hating me. A bit more were now a little bit more understanding on my end, or at least people were attempting to, as before they would just immediately shut me out and call me a fuckboy.
Because there was a shot of you at the end of the video looking sad and hurt.
That's the thing. And this after the second reception, I was like, you know what, it was like maybe like 2 a.m. and I was just like, I've held this in for 2 years. This stuff is already all public domain. This is not a private relationship anymore. There were elements of her negatively entering my live streams and like screaming at me and stuff like this.
That's new.
This is something I didn't. Yeah, this is something I didn't talk about because I don't want to come off as if I'm slandering her for the sake of my own personal gain.
Live streams where? On YouTube or on Instagram?
Yeah, this is just a fact without any emotional bias here, literally. She would show up in one of my live streams and just be like, you know, do not talk about us. Like, this is extremely rude and stuff like this. She actually hosted a live stream where she would intentionally talk shit on me. And I was there with my girlfriend at the time and we were looking at it under a secret account. And it was her and like these two other people and they were just kind of like shitting on me. They were just attacking me in many ways. And yeah, this is something I haven't actually brought in. I didn't want to add that in the reaction video to make it seem like I'm just trying to slander her. But regardless of that, I made the video after realizing that this is not just a me problem. I mean, it is, but to know that there are so many people siding with her after what I felt she had done to me was really scary. And to know that this behavior is generally accepted in a viral video where millions of people have seen it and they think that I'm a terrible person.
Right.
I think it's time for me to actually frame the situation and give it a bit more context so people can at least understand where I was coming from and what actually happened behind the scenes.
So that video that you did, the comments for that were of a much higher quality. They come from a different place of consciousness, should we say? Yeah,
I mean, especially the fact that it was after 2 years. Right. I didn't say one word about it. All I did was make a parody video where I played a character that would embody everything that everyone thought that I was.
Right.
Other than that, I purposely, for the sake of our personal secrecy or whatever else, like did not mention it.
So you made a parody video in which you were an ultra confident douchebag that
Mhm.
just had sex with 40-year-old women, let them fall in love with you, and then cast them aside?
Yes,
Was that
pretty
character
much.
cold-hearted and evil?
Uh, Hilariously, cartoonishly evil. Like I would react to the comments.
Girls fell in love with you after that.
Yeah, exactly. I was commenting on the reactions, and I would just be like, "Yeah, girl, slide my DMs too," something like that. And it was hilarious. But by the end of the video, I take off the costume, kind of
Right,
elaborate on it.
right.
Yeah. What was the question?
It was what I was leading to is like when I did that plugged in documentary, we looked at like a lot of the negative effects of social media. And I'm like, well, I would really like it if everybody unplugged. That's why it's called plugged in.
Yeah.
It's been out for a few months and I'm going, nobody's fucking unplugging. If anything, more people are plugging in than ever before. The only thing that I can, or that anybody can try and do, I think, is to sort of guide the way it's being used. And I think what you did there, instead of reflecting back the worst elements of the human psyche, you gave people a chance to think and reflect. And you let them know that you're not just a fucking avatar of some dude that they fell out with or that broke their heart in high school. You're a human and you get hurt. And letting them know that, it really, really changed. I mean, did you still get dickhead comments on that one, or were people just respectful?
Maybe three.
Okay.
Three just legitimately, ignorantly hateful. Maybe five constructive criticisms. Sorry, go
The
ahead.
three that were hateful, when you looked at the profiles, was it an empty account with no profile picture, no like videos, nothing going on?
Jesus Christ, you're a mind reader. Yes, it was. It was
Yeah,
just
they're all her. That's her.
yeah, yeah. So there was
That's
just
sock puppet accounts. I get hit with sock puppet accounts every day. I'm like, 20 sock puppet accounts. And I'm like, this is 5 or 6 people who are doing it.
yeah, exactly. Just some trolls that just call names and it's like, oh, you're still a fuckboy. And they're like, no, don't react, Pierre. It's fine, it's fine. But other than that, the reception was vastly positive, unbelievable, overwhelmingly positive. It was people were apologizing. That does not happen on YouTube comments
No, that's
ever.
great. That's really good.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
really. That was. I was gonna say it was extremely impressive. I had never seen that ever in the internet landscape at all.
hope for humanity.
Yeah, that's if anything, it allowed me to confirm my idea of being more vulnerable in a constructive way for the sake of not only myself but a lot of the other people watching. Like what you were saying, the whole philosophy of, I don't think people are gonna unplug ever nowadays. I think, and my positioning in that is like I want to be the person. You know what? There's gonna be a bunch of idiots that are influencers that are promoting terrible values and consumerist nonsense. There's only one way to combat this, and it's just to take my foot in there and doing what I can. You know,
Your foot.
putting my foot in there. It works. You know what I'm talking about?
I got a job to do.
Or fingers on the keyboard, whatever you want to call it.
What was you got me there? I'm confused now. So there was definitely a more positive response to the video where you set the context, you were vulnerable. The reason why I'm sort of focused on that a little bit is because I've gone back onto Instagram like 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, I have a job, I have a mission, I want to get access to people. That's where they are. I mean, Instagram usage has exploded this year, exploded. And I'm like, well, everybody's down by the stream. So if I'm up in the mountain shouting at them, ain't nobody gonna hit. I gotta get down to the stream and speak to them. So I'm back. And so far I feel pretty good. I feel pretty hopeful. Like I can make this little spot on Instagram a place where you can learn stuff and where you'll feel stronger. You'll feel more capable of getting on with your life. Do you think that's a realistic goal?
If you asked me that same question 3 years ago, I would be like, probably not. It's not realistic. However, I have had the fortune of experiencing something I never thought would ever happen.
Yeah.
After the first Jubilee video came out, even though there was a lot of negativity, I met a lot of real people with actual brains, with actual hearts. And from there, I built a community of people that had a lot to say. And they're still friends with me to this day. And especially after that third reaction video, my Instagram inbox flooded with paragraphs of very insightful stuff. People that would take the time and probably spent 30 minutes to an hour writing out experiences that they could relate to and how much I've helped them and whatever else. And they're looking forward to watching and maybe learning more from my content and stuff like this. And now I barely actually even have trolls on my Instagram account. And there are a lot of people that are genuinely really intelligent, and they are real people. You know, it's not just a troll account anymore.
It's interesting. Like it almost seems to be the manifestation of intent. Like if you have a strong intent, like this is a positive place, and I only want people who are on a certain frequency to be here. You seem to be able to get that. I don't want to jinx it, but like I'm very, very happy with Spartan Life Coach now. Because when I started out, I was like, is this what the internet is? Just fucking
terrible
and slagging each other off, and it's real. Like for the number of comments I get a day, it's a tiny minority that's like that now. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah. I guess what it seems to be happening is that the Instagram and social media world is integrating so deeply in everyday life that it is a vital component to function in everyday society, where the boundary of internet persona and the person is completely almost gone, to the point where the people are craving a real life conversation and a personal experience through the internet now.
Yes. So where people are craving some kind of authenticity now.
Yeah, and I think that's why the podcast format is so popular nowadays. It's like having a conversation with somebody.
I need to ask you a slightly dumb question.
Go for it.
I'm 41, and I've heard this term bandied about in the last 3 years or so, and I don't know what it is. What is a fuck boy?
A fuck boy. A fuck boy is a boy who likes to fuck a lot.
It's not just a boy.
Yeah. Some older slang for that would be like a player, you know?
Okay.
Just a pimp, you know, kind of like a person, a guy that just really disregards women and objectifies all the girls that he sees and leads them on and manipulates them with the intent of just only having sex.
Okay. So player got shelved. I thought people still used it. That's how not switched on I am. Player's been shelved, and fuckboy is the new term for that.
Yeah, player is like really 2015. So
2015. My God.
So 2015. Oh my
God. You are from the United States of Los Angeles, are you not?
Yes, I am. I'm technically, I was born and raised in California, moved quite a bit from near San Francisco, moved down to like Orange County. Los Angeles is right around the corner, and just kind of moved around those places quite a bit. And now I just recently moved to the Czech Republic in Prague about a year ago.
How do you find that difference between the two cultures?
Jesus Christ, it's like unbelievably different. I couldn't believe, like, first of all, the overall infrastructure and the city itself just is so different. It's beautiful here. There's castles, there's old buildings with actual thought in the architecture and stuff like that. But more importantly, the people here and the mindset is extremely different. It's not just based on, I guess, pure ideology from the people that I've met personally. Maybe I just got really lucky. But there's one thing that people will say about this area of the world, and is that people are generally just really brutally honest. And that's something I crave for nowadays. I just really like brutal honesty. Just tell me the truth. I don't want to beat around the bush. You know, just
that's why you like talking to me.
Yes, exactly.
With the emphasis on brutal honesty.
Yes, brutal.
Brutal.
More brutal.
Honesty.
Yeah, the more brutal is fine. Perfect.
So, in terms of your more spiritual beliefs.
Yeah.
Do you believe in God?
Yeah, that's the age-old question, I guess. I do believe in a higher power. I think there are tangible things that are higher powers, such as the planets, the gravity that surrounds us, the universe itself, and that itself is an indicator of there being a power that's bigger than us. In terms of, I don't know, if there was a God, I would say they're probably aliens playing The Sims, and we're kind of like this upgraded version of it in a simulation. But I do believe that there's definitely something bigger than us in that particular case.
There's no question. They're aliens playing The Sims, and we are The Sims. No question.
Yeah, no question.
And anybody who questions my dogma on that one is an infidel.
And the Earth is flat too. So
yeah, no, totes, blatantly.
Yeah.
So, do you have like a spiritual value system, and then does that affect how you conduct yourself as a social media influencer?
You know, this is something that yeah, sure. Influencer. I like to influence. This is something that I've actually kind of had trouble with explaining because with my line of morals, it doesn't come from a book necessarily, and I can't exactly squeeze out the most linear answer of where I find good and bad, which could be a dangerous thing. But I think where it comes from is a lot of it is just based on the overused word empathy, is like being able to put yourself in another person's shoes and then kind of adopting the behaviors that would allow the other person to feel respected in that particular way, I guess. And maybe it's a bit more intuitive, you know, maybe I'm the second coming. I don't know, you know. Something like that. I just try to be a good person. Yeah, exactly.
You really are a fuckboy, aren't you?
Yeah, no, there's the narcissism. Yeah, I'm the second coming, by the way, Richard. Now you know the mask comes off, you know?
So for people who, for this is the first time seeing you, meeting you, can you tell them about your look?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so it took a lot of stages of evolution in order to land here. I was experimenting with a lot of different types of fashion, trying to find an external identity to subscribe to. However, after a certain amount of time, I really found a affinity towards artists such as like Prince, Michael Jackson, David Bowie, and being a musician myself and an artist myself, it was a matter of being able to externalize my inner world outward. I mean, that's to put it simply without getting too wordy over it, you know.
Yeah. And what kind of a response do you get from people in different social contexts and different countries because of the look that you have, which is it's very different, isn't it?
Sure. And what I find fascinating is that this would have fit right in the late 80s. But now you would think after a few decades, it would get even crazier. But in fact, I feel like we've actually, regress isn't the right word, but it's just a bit more conservative. So living in Orange County, that is known to be a very conservative Trump supporting area. So I got a lot of looks and a lot of people were very passive aggressive towards me. And because there weren't so many people that looked like me, strangely enough, a lot of straight men would approach me at bars thinking I'm a girl. And they would hit on me. And then I would just drop my baritone.
I'd be like, hey.
And I'd be like, hey. They're like, oh, hi.
So as a straight guy, how do you filter that, and what folder do you put it in? Like, as the experience happens, do you go, well, that's a compliment because they think I'm like, if you're good looking as a man or as a woman, that means your face is symmetrical. That's just psychology. You have to have a balanced face. You need to have cheekbones a certain way. Is it a compliment if a guy likes you?
I look at it as fairly neutral. I know where my positioning is in it. I'm self-aware enough to know that, like, okay, I come out the door like this, and if this happens, it's almost expected. And when it first happened, though, it was very odd. But I kind of try to take everything with a good amount of humor, and I kind of use it as just like a almost self-entertainment, being able to drop my voice even lower and say hello. Because now instead of me being uncomfortable being mistaken for a girl, now I can throw it back on them, and now they're like, you know.
And is it usually taken in a good-natured way?
Yeah, surprisingly, yeah, actually, yeah. So I haven't actually gotten violence thrown at me or anything like that. If anything, the guy's generally a good sport about it, or
I lost you.
hello, I'm back.
Hello.
Okay.
I just need to take a note of where that is so I can cut it out. I think that's like 1 hour and 2 minutes in.
Okay.
What were we saying? Oh, you were saying
Oh,
whether anybody had responded violently.
yeah. No, they haven't responded violently. They're either they laugh about it, or they just literally 180 and leave, pretty much.
I mean, do you ever feel sorry for the guy and just have sex with him anyway?
Oh yeah, totally. Just out of pity, of course.
I mean, I
Like,
would.
I might as well try it out, you know.
Right? Why not?
But I mean, like, to get to this point and accepting, like, putting on the makeup and liking how I look,
yeah.
and then going outside took a really long time, because I was questioning my sexuality just because I enjoyed being more flamboyant in this manner.
That's it. Oh, that's interesting. So because you liked the makeup and the sort of Guns N' Roses, Dogs D'Amour look, you actually started to question whether you might be straight or not.
Yep. Like, I made a little 15-minute video explaining where I came with that, but just because of all of these associations and connotations of what a gay person should do, I fit every single box,
Right.
you know? So I thought, oh shit, like, I'm gay and I have to deal with the ostracization that comes with it, you know?
Isn't it mainly focused on contact with cock?
Yeah, that's what I thought, you know? And then everybody else, you know, in Trump support in Orange County was looking at me weird, you know? So I'm like, well.
We do have, as humans, we have a terrible tendency to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, right? Oh my God. It's just black paint around my eyes. Like, oh my God, relax.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I say.
Which historically, I mean, not even the late 80s, but in multiple cultures throughout history and time, like men would have long hair. The Spartans wore their hair long, and the Egyptians would do the eye stuff, and
Right.
make themselves look different and present themselves in a way that's a little bit more theatrical, but a little bit more. I don't know. It's costume, really, isn't it?
Sure. The thing is, I'm a very theatrical person, and this is something that really gives me meaning in my life and some sort of excitement.
No, I follow your Instagram stories. You are a theatrical person. I'm like, let's see what he's up to now. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Screaming like an alien. Oh God, I love it. Yeah, this is stuff that gives my life meaning, you know, and to see, you know, us living in a world with so many resources, and we think that we progress so much, the idea of theatrics out of I think an intrinsic artistic approach is almost gone, and I think we briefly talked about spectacle.
Yeah.
More based on controversy as opposed to like another form of theatrics.
Yes, that was an idea from the book The Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord that I think, as I understood it, which maybe I didn't, was the power of, well, just the fact that humans are very, very visually stimulated apart from all of their other senses, and spectacle has this all-consuming power over us. Funny that compared to the 70s and 80s, we would have less scope to experiment with that kind of thing than now. And it would suggest that whilst we're being told that we're free and we're told that this is progress, that perhaps this is not really what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if anything, I feel like the culture is actually fairly restricting, as much as there are many progressive movements happening in today's world. The actual idea of true self-expression and vulnerability and our ability to just be us, I guess, in that way is very restrictive. And
Yes.
even you see it in the fashion. Streetwear being the #1 youth aesthetic is just so limiting and restricting. So
Oh my God, and it's so uniform, like
yeah,
one
it's a
form.
uniform.
Yeah.
It's exactly a uniform, and yeah, it's a little disappointing.
The where I see it the most is in love and intimacy and sexuality, which there seems to be a full-scale war against at the moment. Love, intimacy, and sexuality. There seems to be a real push against that, which would make sense because it's all part of the same thing. It's all part of human expression and being in touch with our own humanity, isn't it?
Yeah. What, if you could put it simply, what do you think? Like, how do you think there is a war on it exactly?
Well, that's a good question. Back in 1948, George Orwell wrote the book 1984, and a not often quoted passage is when O'Brien is torturing Winston and he tells him what the plan of the party is. And he says, the plan of the party is we will abolish the orgasm, we will destroy love, we will destroy sex. And he goes into a longish diatribe about sex and how the party doesn't want people to have sex for pleasure. They don't want orgasms. An orgasm will be a crime. Remember, Winston is caught for committing a sex crime. And his sex crime is that he saw somebody that he liked, and she saw him and liked him. And they went off into the countryside and started boinking, which is what English people do when they want to get jiggy. They boink.
They boink.
Okay. They boink. And he actually says, we'll destroy the orgasm, we'll destroy sex, and everybody, when we need them to procreate, will meet once a year and have a mating season, and it will be a disgusting task that you just have to get over and done with, only to create more workers who will work for the party. And I've never seen anybody really analyze that. Like, it's a very, I mean, in 1948, this English guy is writing and has one of his characters saying, we will abolish the orgasm, is a line from 1984. And I think, of all the things that he's worried about, why would he be concerned with that? And I think there is an agenda to crush the essence of humanity and to destroy intimacy. And I think the reason being is that intimacy and sexuality and love are the enemies of capitalism, of consumer capitalism, of material.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Now that you said that, okay, so from my experience growing up in my particular generation, I am genuinely a very romantic person, and I really, it's shown in my art and music. I love the 80s because it was possibly one of the most romantic decades of, I mean, there was a movement like new romance. And when it comes to even being slightly sensitive and passionate, being genuinely passionate about a particular thing, I've always run into people of my particular generation downplaying that or being really condescending or be kind of like talking shit on it, because the general consensus of what's okay is like SoundCloud rappers be like, I'm gonna fucking your bitch, I'm gonna fucking your hoe, I'm gonna fucking her bro. Yeah, and it's uncool and it's unacceptable to be genuinely interested and passionate about a particular thing, because you almost get shit on. And even like for these SoundCloud rappers, what they'll say nowadays is, I don't even like rap, as a form of like being even better, because I don't even like what I do. I just make money from it.
I don't even enjoy what I do. Everything is shit. Let's talk like the Kardashians.
Sure. And what's fascinating is that I've run into quote unquote fans, and I would look at a building or something and be like, oh my God, that's just absolutely gorgeous. Like, look at the shades of violet and blah, 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 blah. And I would get these looks of like looking to the side and not really knowing exactly what to say. Because when I have seen them interact with their friends of the same age group, it's usually this banter of like putting each other down constantly about a particular thing and not genuinely describing what they enjoy as a person.
I think what happened was they successfully gouged out all of the values in culture and replaced them with junk values. And one of the big junk values of the generation above yours, which is the millennials, was irony. And everything had to be ironic. And it became a social taboo to be passionate about anything.
Yeah, and you know, I'm technically a millennial, but I really do connect with Gen Z just because
You're not
because I grew up on the computer pretty much. So
the way these things are defined, I has strong opinions on it, and I always say to people, listen, millennials are pretty old now. Millennial is like 36 to 20, because the way we should define it is, can you see a difference in the psychological and emotional outlook of the group? And I would say, fuck yes. A 24-year-old isn't a millennial. People your age, millennials are aggressively selfish, pleasure-seeking, and entitled. Your generation, you might feel like, well, we've got to be better than that. Your generation, I'm even more worried about, because all I see and feel is sadness and despair. It's not sad like in an emo way, like you could really enjoy Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails, like when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. This is like, people are just...
It's genuine darkness. It's genuine darkness. And from my general audience is Gen Z, and I really feel for them because they're not idiots. People will say that they are, but they're genuinely really, really intelligent, and they have all of the information at the tips of their fingers with all the access to the technology and whatever else. Yeah. But they are very, not lost, but they are so exposed to so many things at such a young age that they don't even really necessarily know what to do with themselves. Sort of a thing too.
It's way too much. It's so traumatic for them coming up as digital natives. I
go out of my way to actually connect almost personally with this age group, and I'm talking to like some 16-year-old, and they are so mature in a way where you shouldn't be that mature at that age. Why do you know so many things about existentialism and life being meaningless and being utterly depressed and all of these things when you're 14 years old? It really is quite frightening, and that's kind of one of my main motivators to continue trying to do what I do.
Yeah, it's dark. It's very, very dark. But the point that you made with the irony and the junk values, I think that's something. Well, we won't do it tonight, but maybe we could do another a chat in the future about junk values and how they've kind of taken over and what we need to do. I mean, people. I'm saying to people who are the victims of trauma, like, how do we recover? And I'm going, you need a moral philosophy. And then you just have a whole generation who's traumatized. It's a traumatic time to be alive. And they're told, don't have a moral philosophy. That's the most shameful, stupid, pointless thing you can have. And I'm like, it's the only chance they've got. Because you're telling, what we've told these kids coming up, Gen Z, is everything is meaningless. Every politician is a liar. Every priest is a pedophile. All the institutions are bullshit. Mm-hmm. Everybody's a thief and nothing is anything. And you're like,
yes.
And then we say to them, now fuck off and go to school. Why? Mm-hmm. To get qualifications. Why? So you can get a job. Well, I just read in the papers there's no jobs. Like, it's all been taken over by machines. Like,
you're right.
It's way too much for them. It's way too
and with this new cancel culture movement, like, what would be the icon for the youth decades ago? You know, that kind of pristine holy figure to look up to, whether it be an actual religious figure or David Bowie or Prince or whatever. Now, everyone that they look up to is, what do you call it? A blasphemer. You know,
because you're not allowed to have heroes anymore. Hollywood has been playing a nasty game for a long time. They've been destroying heroes for ages. I really like, who's the Canadian guy who plays Deadpool? What's that fella's name?
Ryan Reynolds.
I like him. I think he seems like a genuinely nice guy. But Deadpool and the way those films were done was just the fucking biggest shit ever taken on modern culture.
I haven't seen it yet. I got to check it out.
It's millennial. It's written by millennials. It's performed by millennials. It is the most cynical, unfunny, pointless load of wank. And Deadpool's, I'm a comic book fan for characters like that are nihilistic. It's a good character, and Ryan Reynolds was the right guy for it, but God, those films are fucking terrible. And it's seeped into everything. It's even in Star Wars movies now. You can't have heroes. You have to destroy, everything needs to be torn down. There's a real effort to just tear everything down. And you think, well, okay, what do you replace that with? I don't know, Kardashians, I guess.
Totally. I think we were briefly talking about this before, but if you really look at music, before you would have these icons such as lead singer of Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant. You've had, Michael Jackson and Prince, and these were people that were genuinely more talented than the masses with tangible proof that you can see with your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And they would dress in the most eccentric way on stage, and people would look up to that and accept the fact that, look, this person worked on their craft and they have this special power thing or whatever. And now in today's generation, we don't like that. We don't want to see somebody better than us to the point where we feel the need to tear them down, even if they were talented. That's why you don't really see talented people in the mainstream celebrity culture. It's just because it's unrelatable now. And this particular generation isn't fond of that.
That's a really clear indicator of a psychopathic culture.
Really?
Yes, because you have to kill the craftsmen and craftswomen. So you have to deny skill and talent and discipline and dedication. And craftsmanship is like disappearing. If you're a craftsman at anything, by the way, you'll never be short of cash. So I consider that what I do, I'm a craftsman, really. You go, well, it's like life coaching and trauma and psychology. I'm like, but I'm the guy who stood there with his tools, chipping away at it for fucking years. So you can come at me with a question and I'll bring out this well-worn, well-used tool and I'll go, I can show you the answer to your question and you'll feel it. You'll be like, this guy isn't fucking, he's not lying. He genuinely, he knows. If you see somebody do a car or they do a painting or something, they just know what they're doing. It's there.
Yes.
Craftsmanship is a diamond.
Yes.
They destroy skill and they destroy talent because it's a psychopathic culture and it induces shame. And so where there is shame, you kill it. That's why psychopaths kill, by the way. Ted Bundy is not an interesting case. Ted Bundy is the dullest, most pointless, robotic turd of a human being that ever existed. A girlfriend of his, who was a pretty white girl with brown hair parted in the center, dumped him. So he then went and killed a load of pretty white girls with brown hair parted in the center to kill the shame. He killed them to kill his shame. He's a total psychopath. That's psychopathic culture. They're better than me. Kill them. Cardi B, well, you listen to her talk and I like it. Like I was listening to the music. I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like, full disclosure.
Sure.
But you kind of look at it and you go, for a start, I think she's deliberately, when she's interviewed, I think she's been trained to speak in a way that is 50 IQ points lower than what she has.
Totally. Yeah.
She's trained to talk like, and I don't mind, rappers always spoke colloquial and street. Back to Public Enemy, De La Soul, people from my day. But this person's deliberately talking like she's being hit in the head with a blunt object.
Sure.
And I'm like, but she has to.
Exactly. Here's a confession, Richard. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I was learning the ways on maybe trying to get my name out there and portraying my art, and even just me as a person,
Mm-hmm.
I had to downplay a lot of what I did. I felt like I needed to. I felt like I had to hide the fact that I could do these things, such as actually producing my music myself and dancing and stuff like this, and even spoke in a way where I was 50 IQ points lower. And this happened for like the longest time because I realized if I were to be so outward with these things, people would be very negative towards me because that would be considered a show off or something like this.
So where did that injunction come from? That came from your social circle and your sense of where your age group was at?
I guess so. I can't bring up a specific event, but just growing up, you just kind of, you feel out the social environment,
Yep.
and I would purposely play kind of like this village idiot that was really funny, and I would hide the fact that I could do certain things like card tricks and whatever else just because I wanted to be accepted, and if I were to show these things, then it would be threatening to the people.
Right.
But here's the interesting part. If I had glasses on and braces, but I could dance really well, I would be accepted because it's not threatening to them physically in that way. It's
Right.
just like kind of this cute little monkey that's dancing and entertaining them, being silly.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting because it kind of suggests maybe there's only a tolerance for so much talent and good looks that we can stand in one place. So I was talking to somebody the other day, like none of our musicians nowadays, or very few of them, are actually genuine musicians. And you know that because they all look like models. Whereas back in the day, if you could play, you were on stage and you were on TV. So they're good looking. So maybe we can't accept them being skilled because there's this thing that you kind of suggested, like there's this tight limit for how good you can be before they'll fucking lynch you.
It's true. It's so true. And for me, why I'm obsessed with the past decades is like, it was accepted for somebody to be the best person they possibly can at their craft. And that was it.
Yeah.
This person's really good at what they do. And that's it.
I remember growing up hearing about Prince, who taught himself, what was it, from the age of 8 to learn every instrument, and he learned it by fucking ear, and that's amazing. Let me buy his albums. Christ knows how he'd do now.
Yeah, and he's one of my biggest inspirations. And the funny thing is like, he exudes just pure confidence and ego on stage, and that type of performance would not work with this generation now, and even the aesthetic of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's probably not ironic enough. It's probably it's too sincere.
I wanted to talk about that, the idea of irony and appreciating things out of the sake of irony. I mean, is it okay if we talk about it now, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so
I'm just sweating even more copious than I was. People are used to it now. They're just going.
No, I'm sweating too, man. I'm just
like this guy is glistening.
Yeah, dude, you're just like pouring. You're like seeping, man. So, I when I was a bit younger, just yesterday.
Get to fuck you.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated things out of irony growing up. Like I really liked just dumb rap music because it was ironically hilarious, and I liked ironic things just because it was funny to kind of be a little superior than what other people like and stuff like that, And nowadays, I do implement a lot of irony in what I do, but it's a genuine appreciation out of an ironic thing. Vaping is super douchey. A fucking boy would vape, and it's ironic that I do it. However, I genuinely like vaping. I have this. I wore Crocs for the longest time, and I just really liked the Crocs after a certain period of time. And I felt like I kind of reached this middle ground of, how ironic can you go where it doesn't become extremely condescending to everybody else?
Right. Yeah, because I suppose you could get a critical mass of irony where you are just offending everyone because you're always taking the piss out of something. You're always mocking something.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I have issues with, like the hipster subcultures, especially for the fact that a lot of the hipster bands make absolutely fantastic music. But if you go to one live show, you just get a bunch of bearded, mustachy people in flannels just silently judging and observing it because they can't genuinely outwardly express if they like the music or not because they have to be ironic about it.
They are the dark overlords of irony, aren't they? I mean, that's where it started, I think, is the hipsters, is everything had to be ironic.
Yeah, there's a safety in appreciating things that aren't supposed to be liked because you're not going to be criticized that way. It's like, it's already not liked, so I'll be fine.
What you just said is, I'm very passionate about this, and I won't go into a rant, is what is destroying films because every fucking writer and every director wants to be safe. They couldn't stand for a second that the audience might figure out that they actually care about their characters. So everything is ironic, and it's so claustrophobic watching films now and just having your fucking brain dipped in this ideological gloop. And you're like, oh, for God's sake, show me a character that you care about and then direct this fucking shit so that I want to watch it. Because I'm just tuning out now. I'm just like, oh, well, I guess I can see what the group of 15 writers were arguing about during this scene. You know, it's just, it becomes what I feel like it is, whether it's TV or films, good-looking people standing in rooms saying words to each other. Where is, like, the rawness of Taxi Driver? Where would be, like, fucking Godfather Part 2, which is from the beginning to the end of that film, not one bad note. You talk about craftsmanship, you're sucked into another world, and at no point does an actor drop a line, is a scene cut badly, nothing. Everything is just beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. But this shit now, I'm just like, what am I watching? John Wick 3. He fucking murders everybody for 90 minutes. And I'm like,
to link back on to link back on that idea of psychopathic culture, maybe it's the fact that maybe people don't even want to be necessarily attached to a movie character because it just hits too deeply, and people don't exactly want to feel that particular way in today's generation. Because like I feel like a lot of the art and music and film that's coming out today is based on the notion of ear candy or eye candy. It's just like these little sweet glimmers of just, okay, ooh, flashy. Sort of.
Little quick dopamine hit.
That's what it is. That's what it is, for sure, 100%. If it digs any deeper than that, then I don't think it would even sell.
It's interesting. I think it's worse. I think that it is that, and that what you just said is undeniable. I would take it a step further. I think there's been an effort not just to destroy heroes, but deliberately to destroy quality. The last series of Game of Thrones, I don't believe that was a sincere effort. I think that is part of some fun. Were you into Game of Thrones?
I'm sorry, I'm not a big film, movie, TV show guy. I'm sorry.
I forgive you your sins. It's a great show for 7 seasons, and every season they got better because there's a team working on it, the costumes are better, the lighting is better, the acting is better, because you're now like this group of people who've been living with each other for years, and it's good. And then the last season is so badly written, it's impossible for me to not feel like there's something more going on there. Black Mirror, the last season of Black Mirror, it's like a cheap rip-off of the original Black Mirror. And I've seen this with films as they progress as well. I think they actually are bringing deliberately the quality of things down as part of, and I'm going to sound like a fucking mad conspiracy theorist, but if you show people stuff that is shit, intellectually it's bad, it's badly formulated, it's badly written, the characters are talking nonsense, they're doing stuff that they would never do under those circumstances, and you force the audience to go through the trauma of this willful suspension of disbelief, you make them dumber. Like, I'm dumber for watching these films and for watching these TV shows. And I'm dumber and I'm crestfallen. Well, who benefits from me being crestfallen? Who benefits from me being dumber? I think the last James Bond movie that came out, they castrated the character. Now in Game of Thrones, they literally castrate, 3 of 4 of the main characters literally have their cocks cut off. There's a 5th character who is damaged in a way that makes him paralyzed from the waist down. And the main hero ceases to be a hero. So even though he doesn't have his cock cut off, he may as well have done. And I'm just watching this and I'm going, don't tell me this is just writers having a bad day. This is something more, man. This has got to be part of an overall agenda, because culture influences psychology. Films and TV shows influence psychology. I think they're trying to make people just feel disappointed and crestfallen and heartbroken and stupider. That's my crazy conspiracy theory for the evening.
For the sake of financial gain? Is that the end goal in your opinion, or what do you?
Oh no, we're way past financial gain now.
It's just like for the sake of breeding a dumb population.
Yeah, dumb population. Finance is kind of, it's important on one level, but it depends on how high up the chain you're going. When you're printing money and you have an infinite amount of money and an infinite number of slaves to serve you, the only thing that mattered to the emperors of Rome was maintaining order. It wasn't making money. They had more money than they could spend. They had more slaves than they could use. You know, it was maintaining order. I'm actually reading a book about the last days of Rome through the eyes of Cicero at the moment, and it's from real historical documents. It's about keeping the populace placid. The internet made people smarter for a while. It connected people. It allowed this, you know, me and you have connected.
Yeah.
This conversation is being broadcast through the internet. It will make people think, and they have to do something to counteract that. And that's one way of doing it, is to destroy people's expectations and their sense of what is good and what is bad.
Interesting.
Through TV and the films.
Yeah, I have a different perspective on it. I think that a lot of these new works that are created, I almost feel like it's done just for the pure sake of succumbing to primitive impulses for either financial gain or whatever type of gain from it. And it just so happens to dumb everybody down. In terms of the intention to keep everybody obedient, that could be the case, actually, now that I think about it. But I mean, you see it in music too, with all the SoundCloud rap stuff. They're setting the bar so absolutely low to basically trigger those primitive impulses of what every human basically wants, which is money and fucking, sort of a thing.
Yeah, and the basest desires.
Yeah, and it just seems like those are just things that are genuinely not genuinely, but appreciated by the lowest common denominator and most of the population, sort of a thing. And it's also less work for every creator to create stuff nowadays, because you don't need to put that much work into it.
And that's an unfortunate side effect of the technology, is you really don't. I mean, you've heard Old Town Road by Little Nas X.
Yeah.
That went viral on TikTok first.
Yeah.
It's a good track, but the three people who put that track together never met each other in real life. Mm-hmm. It's a guy who finds a sample from a guy in the Netherlands who sampled 9 Inch Nails. It's actually a 9 Inch Nails song, Old Town Road.
Yep.
Slowed down, and then Billy Ray comes onto it because he wants to earn some coin. And you just think, no wonder these kids are thinking like that's the way to go. Why do a job when you could, you know, stumble on a thing like that? And I'm not saying anything against that. I like that track.
You know, here's my theory on the current state of music and having hip hop being the main source of music, is that hip hop is a direct reflection of the digital instant gratification world. Because in order to make a hip hop track, like you said, 3 people that never met each other, beats already made, one take sort of a thing, you barely mumble it, boom, instant content. And it's the idea of quantity over quality. As opposed to, for example, the indie band crafting a song for 6 months, recording the whole thing, and then boom, the album is appreciated for a month, then it's gone. But then they have to do that same cycle all over again for another year. Whereas opposed to hip hop, it's just one song, like an Instagram post, every week. Every week it's just another one. And I think it's just the perfect physical, or I guess not physical, but auditorial representation of social media.
I definitely agree with you. And I think hip hop, because I'm listening to it again. I stopped listening. I was big into it when I was a kid, and I started listening to it again about 4 months ago, and I'm listening to it a lot. And I hear the references to social media. They're talking about Instagram. Yeah. They're talking about shit that's been said on Twitter. Yeah. It's probably, of all the styles, as you rightly say, it's probably at the most cutting edge or interactive, let's say, as far as, because you could say something on, you could do a rap on SoundCloud saying that I'm a sweaty glistener, and I'll be like, shit, I can record a track And then
Yeah.
millions of people will listen to our rap battle
Yeah.
called The Sweaty Glistener.
Yeah. You know, ironically enough, it sounds like I'm criticizing hip hop and everything, but it's like the main genre I listen to. I listen to a lot of ignorant rap music, like Lil Pump and all these guys. I really enjoy it. But maybe this actually gives a bit of perspective on where I guess Generation Z is. Because for me, I love my heart loves The Cure and music that's inherently a lot deeper. I even listen to certain piano scores and stuff like this. However, in order to get through my life, in order to do the mundane and to get a paycheck by the end of the day, or to get and do errands, while this idea of your existential life might not have any meaning, the best way to get through that is to listen to Lil Pump talking about Gucci Gang and getting racks, you know, and fucking bitches, just because it overrides all of these deeper notions that you'll have in your head in order to work your 9-to-5 retail job.
Well, like, you know, I gotta say, it's some of it is good. Some of it stacks up against the best stuff that has ever been done. Some of it, it's just generally like mumble rap, and you know, I saw a thing that Snoop did. He did an interview, and he was saying it all sounds like. So I got a playlist. I was on a long journey the other day, and I did the bubbity bur test. I had a random playlist of hip hop, and I was like, can you rap along by going bubbity bubbity bur?
Yeah.
If you can,
Sure.
it's shit.
Yeah, sure.
Do that to the Wu-Tang Clan. I'm telling you, there's no bubbity bubbity bur with the Wu-Tang.
For sure. I mean, all that music is just based off of rhythm to get you moving, and I just have accepted the fact, you know, I'm not listening to this shit to get some lyrical insight on anything. I just need to turn off my brain in order to do some mundane like activity in my daily life, sort of a thing.
Well, there's music for different scenarios, right? I tried to. The Prodigy released an album recently, and I listened to it in the gym, and I played the album 15 times because it's short. It's only like 50 minutes long. It's their last album. It's perfect for the gym. Perfect. It's perfect when you're on the bike.
Yeah, sure.
I tried to play it in the car, and I was like,
is this what I'm really listening to?
When I'm not grunting and chucking weights around, this has a different feeling for me.
I totally agree, man. If I have to go just outside and just to walk around and stuff, the first thing I'll go to is like mumble rap and just stuff like that, just because I just turns off. I don't want to think about, you know, what the meaning of life is when I'm getting, you know, a potato or something. So it's like I just want to hear da 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 da, and you just get my potato. Da 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 da. Yeah. Start with the potato.
Back with your potato, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are times to listen to dramatic piano scores and getting potatoes too, but you know.
Yeah, those are the rare days, the special days.
Yeah, it's like maybe once a month is okay.
I just on the supermarket on the way back, I saw a really passive aggressive interaction between an English lady and a Spanish woman in the supermarket. The English lady was saying, "I want tea. Do you have tea?" And she said it like that. She's being really English. "Do you have tea?" And the Spanish lady was going, "Patatas? ¿Quieres patatas?" The word in Spanish is literally tea, and she's English and going, "Tea?" And she was just going, "I don't understand you. I think you want potatoes."
That's hilarious.
You know what?
That sounds like a Vine or a TikTok, like a 6-second comedic skit. What the hell? TikTok. Were they narcissists?
They were just not very bright. You gotta have compassion in your heart, man.
If you had to psychoanalyze them, you know.
The genetic material sometimes when it comes to IQ. There's not much we can do about that.
What that does?
Well, listen, Pierre, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, sure. Just let me know, man. Let's go.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to the people of SpartanLifeCoach.com planet before we sign off?
Richard knows exactly what he's talking about, and he's helped me through a lot of shit. So keep watching his videos, subscribe again, unsubscribe, then subscribe again. And it's been really awesome, the fact that I'm on your platform, man, because you really helped me out a lot, man. So just put it simply, thank you for everything that you do. I'm not going to make it about myself, you know. But check out my channel if you would like.
They're going to be linked. So many of them linked. They've got no escape. They're going to be pushed.
Yeah, exactly.
Pushed to your YouTube. What was the name of your YouTube channel again for them?
If you just literally type in Pierre XO, you'll run into something of mine, and just be careful what you click on. Sometimes they just vary.
I'm going to press stop on the record button in a minute, and then we can talk about the stuff that we normally talk about under this. Sounds good.
All right, sounds good to me.
All right, ladies, gents, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you, Pierre.